Hello, and well, you guys are all doing something special. Yeah, nothing special to do. Anyway, welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on the last episode of season one, episode 6 of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I almost said Dunk and Egg. What I did not almost say is Night of the Nine Kingdoms because that's stupid. But we are here to talk about the final episode. I believe is just called The Morrow. So yeah, joined here by the usual special guests, Don and Darren. Don, we were really missing you last week because I couldn't remember anyone's name. I'm glad you're here this week. Don, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back, to discuss this. And maybe we should do like a full season wrap up at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. We can just include that here. I don't know if I want to do a whole separate video about it. But anyway, and then also joining us, Darren. Darren, thanks for joining as always.
Oh, very excited to get back here, wrap up the show. Curious to get everybody's takes on this final episode.
Cool. So, yeah, I guess we'll start with our overall feeling on this episode. I think, yeah, it was a wrap up episode. It's pretty much, I mean, compared to Game of Thrones, how, you got the episode 9, which is the big episode, and then the next episode is just, takes care of things, like wraps everything up and sets things up for the next season. This one I think was more wrap up than setup, but that's fine. I mean, that follows the books in that regard, and they added a lot of extra stuff because in the books this is like this is like a thin amount. That's like when we ended the episode last week. I was like, how are they going to fill a whole episode up? And I should have known the answers. The answer is you drag things out. But that being said, I did not find it boring. I didn't find that it lagged or dragged. I actually was interested. I thought it was all good, nice character stuff until that, like, I guess we can call it post-credit scene, but not really, which pissed me the fuck off, but we'll get into that later. But overall, I did enjoy this episode. I think it was a nice wrap-up. Nothing hugely special. Like, apparently last week's episode was like the highest episode rated on IMDb ever of any show ever, and like fans of Breaking Bad were going to this page and downvoting it because they wanted Ozymandias to be higher than this, which is fair because Ozymandias is like a billion times. But I'm sorry, last week's episode was not that good. I mean, I give it an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode, but it's nowhere near one of the best. Anyway, sorry, that's a rant. Don, we'll start over with you first because you weren't here last week.
So I am surprised to hear your thoughts on last week's episode being such vitriol, good sir. However,
8 out of 10 is not vitriol.
I mean, you're the one that was like, it's not a great episode, though. I mean,
it's not that great. It's not like one of the great. It's not Ozymandias great. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I mean, listen, I've heard many people describe it as one of the top 3 episodes of any. I don't know if it's up there, but I like the episode. Just them explaining Dunk's backstory, him going up in Flea Bottom, and kind of, this is sort of his own personal redemption. Like, hey, I wasn't able to save my friend back in Flea Bottom, but I can do the right thing here and now. And I think that was the main way for me when it came to that story, and just him finally realizing the cost, like what the cost could be entering this world. And that's why he was saying, like, hey, yeah, maybe this is my penance for not knowing my place. There's that part to kind of reconcile with. So yes, while you had the big battle, and honestly speaking, I do actually think that in terms of close up personal combat, this was some of the best. You know, I still think Battle of the Bastards probably is the best, or if not, yeah, it's either Battle of the Bastards or the Battle of the Wall. Um, but in terms of like close up combat and not having any sort of large armies, I think they did a great job in terms of making it very personal, especially when you got to like literally see through Duncan's eyes, like through his visor and all that. And I think it was a perfect setup to this episode because now you're dealing with the aftermath. And I like this episode a lot. It was what I consider your typical Game of Thrones wrap up episode where after you've had the big thing happen in episode 9, now we sit back and kind of process this with the characters. What are they gonna do now that this traumatic event has happened? And in this case, that traumatic event being the death of Baelor, who everyone thought was going to be the second coming of Jaehaerys. So now, they're sitting there like, okay, we have the new heir apparent who was like, I wasn't expecting for this to be a thing for another 30, 40 years maybe. And, him having to deal with that. And just the repercussions for everything. I don't, not going to get into everything right now, but just I think overall this was a very good episode. I'm going to say that this one is 9 out of 10 for me. And I'll even say last is 9 out of 10 for me as well.
I will not begrudge a 9 out of 10 for last week's episode.
Damn it, Don. How am I supposed to crap on this episode now when you give it such this eloquent explanation and insightful character breakdown? Which I wouldn't, by the way. We did talk about last week how this episode was going to play out, and it did pretty much come as expected in my sense. I do agree there was some nice character stuff, and honestly, the acting that's done in this and the moments that are taken, I think really are impactful, and they do a great job with that. It did in many ways feel like a half-hour denouement to this episode, which to me did kind of stretch it. It was like, okay, it did feel a little stretched in that aspect of what they were doing and where they were going with it. But overall, I think it ended things well. My only kind of like real little gripe to it, and Mark already alluded, is they make, I think, 2 very distinct separations from the source material. And I think it's done to establish and blink in story for upcoming seasons to give them extra flesh out time. But it does, I think, it makes big changes to the characters ultimately. And in a way that we don't deal with in the original stories. So, if that's something that you're into, that's great. For me, I sort of expected one of them. There was happening right as it was happening, but we'll get to that.
All right, so let's get started on the episode. So it starts with Lionel Baratheon visiting good old Dunk. I thought it was probably one of the funniest moments with the Maester. The Maester is like, "Oh, he's beyond my skill to heal. He's like, oh, shut up. Itchy ass is beyond your skill to heal. He's like, go away. Don't worry about him. He's just dumb. Which apparently was true because Dunk did not die. So I guess that maester was useless. But yeah, the whole gist of it is that Lionel is like, hey, let's, you come the Storm's End, let's hang out, we can go, do shit and it'll be fun or whatever, and you can be part of my house. And Dunk is like, hey, I don't know about this, and getting into why he's upset and how he's upset about Baelor's death, and of course Lionel sees it totally different. He's like, he's just who cares about Targaryens? Best Targaryen is a dead card Targaryen. He risked nothing, so the gods are punishing him for like cheating or whatever. Which you can tell doesn't exactly sit right with Dunk, but he's still like doesn't give him a firm yes or no after that. And I like Lionel's line about, oh, come to Storm's End and I'll love you like a brother, or don't come and I'll hate you like a brother, which is the type of character. So I've loved this character throughout, and I thought this is a great moment with that character. But it's also very interesting from Dunk's perspective as well, because if you go back to episode 1 and 2, like this was everything he dreamed of. This is everything he ever would have wanted. This would be a dream come true. Lord, like a liege lord of like, a whole area saying, hey, come be my friend, live in my castle and shit. But because of the events of what happened, because he's sitting there, which we'll talk about later, what he's thinking about, is my life really, or is my hand and foot really worth the life of a prince who would have been the best like king the Seven Kingdoms had? So because of that perspective, he's just too devastated to jump at what would have been a dream come true, which I love. And then, of course, this is one of 2 times that happens in this episode. So yeah, Darren, we'll start with your thoughts on this. Oh, you're still muted.
Yes, Lionel is great, and it's fun to start off this episode with him. I do actually really like him bringing up that, hey, I was there. We are the ones that really risked our lives. I think he actually has an excellent point there, and kind of a rebuke of the real difference, and also, just the importance of what they did to step up into things without any expectation. The Targaryen, yeah, he was up against the whites who aren't the white cloaks who aren't going to attack him anyway. And the fact that he fell was really only just a freak occurrence. But, that's what happens in battle, I suppose, or a lot of freak occurrences. So there was a lot to really like about this. And yeah, I completely agree with the now weighing of the difference of what were my expectations versus the reality, and what kind of knight do I want to be? And yes, is this exchange really appropriate for things? And if I'm given the time ultimately dealing with the, what should I do with that? Which he finally deals with Maekar later on. So yeah, a lot of really good stuff. Really odd musical choice to kick things off with that kind of jazzy little bit. It's just, that's the one thing about this show. There's just occasionally just really weird choices that are made. But I did like the kind of wrap up here with Baratheon, and like you said, his really measure of, you're so worried about this guy, you should be very thankful of the people that did just step up out of nowhere to help you, because I think that really kind of underlines Dunk's eventual kind of character of the knight that he wants to be, in a way. Don?
I did it all for a day. It was 12 o'clock noon. She came into the bar where I was working. Yeah, I was a knight. I was a knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And she was Tansel. Tansel tall. I mean, like when I heard that music in the beginning, that's exactly what went through my head. I was waiting for the screen to go black and white. For all of the color to be like totally drowned out, and for everything to look like Sin City for a little while. But hey, this is that corner of Westeros where when you're dealing with the small folk, you get small folk music. no orchestra here. This is the jazz band. I'm down in the dumps. I've got a drunk and pissed off lord and a minister that doesn't know how to do his job. Okay, fine. Listen, yeah, we can just lay under the tree, get drunk, and I'm going to sit here and wallow in self-pity over the fact that I just got their future king killed. Really for nothing. It was interesting to see Lionel, though. His reaction to the whole thing, because, I mean, the Targaryens are his cousins. He seemed to have much vitriol for the House of the Dragon. He's like, oh, well, yeah, the only good dragon is a dead dragon. I'm like, what? How long has this Targaryen hate been brewing in the background? Yeah, so it was interesting to see his, the fact that he was all in that mode as well. It was like, yeah, we got it from the Fosterways, and we can kind of understand the Fosterways being of that mindset, but the Baratheons came with the Targaryens to conquer Westeros. Aegon didn't come by himself. Oris Baratheon was his general, was the first hand of the king. What the hell has happened in the past, 200 years? But that was just, an interesting opening section there, and again, I like the camaraderie that Lionel and Dunk built. I'm sorry, I still can't get over the damn age gap. Like, Lionel is too damn old. He's too damn old.
Westeros ages you, man. Westeros ages you. He's actually only 25.
I was about to say, don't tell me he's supposed to be 23 with all that damn gray.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Oh, and I forgot to say, we did get our bodily function of the week.
Oh, yes.
Another pissing scene. I was just thankful he didn't have to actually whip out his thing and watch him actually pee. It was a legitimate, like, no, we see the stream, but it's okay. Much more acceptable.
Brandon says, what the hell happened? The Dance of Dragons happened, Don. And I do, like, I was watching this thing that was kind of explaining that Targaryens, after the dragons died, start being less feared and more hated. And it just, like, gradually built and built.
Yeah, I mean, no, but why by the Baratheons specifically? Because, again, like, the Baratheons should be just as... The Baratheons should always be basically the closest house to the Targaryens. Yes, we've seen the Valarians in the House of the Dragon be closer, but, like, otherwise, historically speaking...
Well, if I'm not too mistaken, I think that this time period is closer to Robert's rebellion than it is to Aegon's conquest.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So,
I mean, but just
it's been-
wondering, okay,
yeah.
for Lionel to be saying the only good dragon is a dead dragon, like saying that he would be saying that.
Mm. Fair enough. I thought it was, I thought it was pretty interesting that, and this was a change from the book because Lionel never offered him to get he wasn't as big of a character in the book. So that makes Dunk's journey a little bit different because now he had another, like, two offers to uh, work for Lords. So I think I like it. I think it adds something to the show. So after this, we go to the funeral, which I really don't have much to say about. He goes up to Baelor's son, and he's like not in a good mood, obviously, and says, "Why should you live when he dies?" And he's just like, "Well, I asked myself the same thing." And he's like, "Away with you, Sir Duncan." And I guess that just adds to like the crummy way that he's feeling and just how down he's feeling. But I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to have a funeral scene, but I don't. I don't think it really adds anything particularly to it. And then he runs into Raymond and his new wife. Now, when I first saw this episode and the wife came out, I was like, is that the same prostitute that we saw earlier in the show? But then when she went to Duncan, and I was like, "Oh, good to meet you, Sir Duncan." I was like, "Okay, so it's not her. It must be someone different." But then I watched the videos that are explaining, no, it is her. She's just pretending that she doesn't know Dunk because Raymond doesn't know she was a prostitute and she's lying. And she kind of gave him like a kind of wink. Good to meet you, wink, wink. I never know you before, because she doesn't want Duncan to ruin her thing and to mention it. And Dunk, of course, is not the type to do that. And you can see that Raymond's happy or whatever. I don't think that she is conning him, though. I think that she generally wants to be his wife. She wants to move up from being a commoner to, having a lord as a husband. But it's it's kind of lying to him to do it. But that's just my interpretation. This is completely new from the books. The books did not have this character at all. But I thought it was interesting. It added a little dynamic to it. But I do like how Raymond was still like trying to console Dunk and as good as friends as ever with him. And, that he got kicked out of his house or whatever because his cousin was a dick and took all his stuff. He was like, "It's okay, I make my own orchard or whatever." and so I think Raymond's definitely, he was a friend in the books, but I think in the show they made him like even more of one, someone who was like diehard for him. I like that change. I think that's a good way to flesh his character out. Darren, what say you?
I kind of like their friendship, and it's definitely kind of like two unexpected people, cast outs in a way, coming up and finding their way up. He was knighted because he defended Dunk, and so they're kind of bonded in this whole way. And I like the character set up. I was also kind of a little confused at that moment when she came out. I was like, haven't we seen her? And then the way he's explaining, I'm like, what, are they already married? So did I not? Am I confusing her with someone else? And then the way they were acted. And then, of course, later on, she's serving in the tent or what? I don't even, it was obvious. They do mention up that she was the one screaming and cheering out in the during the whole jousting and such. So I did finally catch up, like, oh, okay, she was that person. But they kind of played that scene well, because I also felt like I was catching up and a little confused, and I thought everybody played it off very well, even though I know that there was no knowing on some level that was going on with the characters. And you're right, I do appreciate like I said, their friendship. going forward, and that's definitely something I think that may repeat in future seasons. I think they're laying a lot of groundwork of where they could go and how they could alter and how they can flesh out material from the other novellas, and that's what I feel like they're kind of doing a lot of here. Um, but it felt very correct that these two would be, like I say, connecting and kind of coming together, and this was a big point for Dunk. But yeah, pretty much that.
Well, I'm gonna say that first off, let's give a nice big long hug here. You know, just let's just hug it out. You want to hug it out? Yeah, just oh, this feels good to hug, doesn't it? God damn it, Raymond! If you get the hell off me, all right. Don't get me wrong. I like Raymond Fosway, but goddamn, that was a long hug for no good reason whatsoever. All right.
Well, all right. I will counter argue and say that he almost died. That they both almost died. But I will agree. I will agree it was way too long, uncomfortably long. Just
yeah, no, I mean, like, look, I had no problem. It's not that I have a problem with the hug, but it's like, dude, it's not like the day stops moving when you hug. Okay, you know the clock is still ticking. We still have things to do. Yeah, but look, and I hate this next phrase. All right, please forgive me, but this is literal bros before situation. God damn it, Dunk. How you gonna let your man marry a prostitute, bro? And then she scammed him. She's already pregnant with Dundarian's baby, and she about to pass it off as Raymond.
That is a scam. You're right. Yes.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Yes.
She's taking advantage of an opportunity, you know.
I mean, listen, this is the feudal ages. Trying to be a social climber. I get it, but goddamn it, for all the honor, yo, this man sacrificed his life for you, bro. He put his life on the line for you, and you know the dude that the first guy that you went to vouch for you even get into the tourney wouldn't let you win. She was smashing him the whole time. She's carrying around his baby. How you gonna do your man like that? He did Raymond dirty by letting that go down. Saying Raymond was happy, but now the more that I think about it, I'm like, man, that was whoever wrote it. I report her that was cruel, man. That was cruel.
I mean, I can kind of sympathize with Dunk because he doesn't want to rain on Raymond's parade. If he tells him that will like ruin his happiness and kind of destroy his thing. But I get what you're saying though, by not telling him he's going to marry a prostitute.
I mean, well, think about it like this, right? Remember, they're still dealing in the aftermath of the Blackfire Rebellion. Part of the whole thing where people even supported Daemon to begin with is because their father, Aegon IV, went around spreading rumors that Darren wasn't his. And so there were people who were calling him Darren Falseborn. So as important as lineage is, to let this man think that he's about to have a son from a woman that was basically already pregnant. Like, yeah, but what do you think is going to happen if he actually does wise up one day and realize, wait, hold on, okay, I slept with her one day and she told me that she's pregnant, and now all of a sudden for the next kid, oh, it's taking her like a month to realize that she's pregnant.
But Don, he's never gonna find out because what happens in Ashford stays in Ashford.
Yeah, not if you marry the prostitute and take her home with you. Oh
See,
man,
I
but
feel bad. I was all just like, I didn't even think of her being pregnant from a previous guy and doing all
Yeah.
that. I was just like, oh, she's just saying she's pregnant because that's going to get them married. And I did not have any suspect of that. You're much more devious than I, Don. That's why I like you so much.
too many,
I
too many
kind
years
of
of
I gotta be honest. I kind of feel for her. I get worried because she wants to get out of the life. She wants to have a normal. She sees her opportunity. Sick of being a prostitute. Wants to have a normal life. So, but
don't get me wrong. Again, I understand. You know, like there probably isn't another way for her, given that particular feudal system and all that. Got what you got to do. You know, but damn, Dunk. Like, listen, I get it. They put Dunk in an impossible situation. She was somebody who actually was nice to him and helped him navigate
yeah,
when he first got to the Ashford or whatever. And where a lot of people treated him bad, she was one of the few people that actually was really nice to him.
yeah,
Whereas most prostitutes probably wouldn't have been. They were like,
yeah.
okay, listen, you got no money, I'm not even going to talk to you. And on the other side of it, you have Raymond, sweet boy, sweet summer child,
I,
really meant right.
I really
Um,
think I really think that Dunk's perspective was just leave me out of it. Like I'm not touching this with a 50-foot pole. This is your thing.
I think this will be the unbroken lance. Yeah, so no, I get it. Listen, these are the two people who really helped him out with a lot of stuff, and you know what? Let them be together, and hopefully it really happens to be true love.
All right, so let's move over to the scene where Dunk meets up with Makar. Now, this is a change from the book. You might say, "Oh, that's insignificant," but I think it is a little significant. I think it changes the context of everything because in the book, Makar goes to Dunk under the tree, and they have the same conversation that they have. But in the show, he sends for his men to retrieve Dunk and bring him to him. And I think that changes the dynamic because there's more of a power dynamic here. Because if he goes to Dunk's tree, he's kind of respecting him. He's kind of reaching out to him. But if he sends men to bring him to him, he's kind of like treating him like a lower life form and like you need to do what I say because I'm the royal. Um, and so yeah, so I get that changed. I didn't mind it. But then I think Makar still recognizes the importance of Dunk, and I think might as well. I'm just gonna run it into this scene right there. The scene later on when Egg tries to kill or thinks of killing Arion, but Makor comes in and stops him. This is, of course, also a new scene. Between these two scenes, I think they make it very clear that Makar actually does love Egg, and also, moreover, sees that Darren's a drunk, Arion's a total asshole, and Aemon's a maester. So that his last chance of raising like a good boy that would follow in his footsteps would be Egg, and so he's kind of putting all his and I also appreciate that he's big enough to see that how much Egg admires Dunk and to give Dunk what is actually a really really good strong opportunity. And I love the conversation that he has with Maker about I should have like is my hand and foot really worth the life of a prince. and then he's like, well, maybe if I'm gonna do something, or my feet, you're gonna use my feet to change the realm in some way. And Makar, of course, not bloody likely, or not fucking likely, or whatever he says, shows their different attitudes. But I think at this moment, the reason why Dunk sort of rejects him is, for one, he doesn't believe himself worthy of being the mentor to a prince, to Egg. And for two, I think he wants to justify, like, do something huge to justify Baylor's death, and he doesn't think that would involve anything with the Targaryen family. Which, again, this is the second time where he was offered what, if he was offered this in the first and second episode, he would be over the moon. This would be his dream. But yeah, and also this is a change from the book, because they sort of separated this. Like, Dunk didn't right out say no. He came up back to him immediately and says, what if you have Egg follow me? And they separated those to have Dunk just walk out and say no. And I actually like this decision. I think it makes sense. I like how they have to have Dunk has to mull it over. But the first reaction to hearing take on Egg as a squire is, no, I don't want to deal with any of this royal shit anymore. Don, we'll start with you.
Well, listen, all of this with Makar and Egg, it really shows the family dynamic. Listen, at the end of the day, Makar is an aristocrat through and through. So for him, summoning Dunk, it was like, yeah, I'm summoning you because I'm bringing you up. So that's kind of showing, like, his character. There, even after all of this, there's nothing that really changed about him. When Dunk said, yeah, well, you might have swung the mace that hit your brother, but he was fighting for me, he immediately was like, well, shit, yeah, if I can shift the blame off, right now, in real time. Yes. And every time a crop fails, they'll say Baylor when this happened, but the hedge knight killed him. No, the hedge knight wasn't the one that banged him in the back of the head with the mace. But yeah, just in order to absolve himself of any culpability, just like, yeah. Think about in the real world. You get somebody rich that gets accused of something heinous, and the first thing they do is say, "'Twasn't me, underling." And here we go again. And he essentially said he was going to let him take the fall in real time. But for him, for Makar, it's more about the family image than anything. And he's thinking about, well, okay, you know what? Yeah, I screwed up with at least the first two kids. Eamon was just a weirdo, so, like, fine, go read your books and go learn something. But, all right, Egg, he's young enough that I might be able to actually save him. I can look and see what I did wrong with Darren and Arian, which in Makar's assertion probably would have been, he would have been like Tywin was with Jaime and Cersei, where, I'm just going to be on top of you all day, every day, to make sure that you don't get out of line. So, like, I get that. I get Makar's what he was going for. He was like, "Oh, this is my last son," and all that. Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't have the vision. The thing that he really could have learned from the situation, he was too busy having on blinders to see, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, the way that things have been going with specifically my children, specifically with my boys, being raised at Summer Hall, you know, the best tutors or whatever have you, and look at how these guys have turned out. And instead of in the moment him taking a second to see that, he was just like, "Oh no, I'm a prince of the blood. My son's a prince of the blood. We are all dragons. You can't expect me to sleep in a ditch. Huh. You know, you want him to be a hedge knight like you, sir? A poor, lonely hedge knight with nothing to his name, no respect, no money, no garrison, no, no hall of his own to sleep in. Shame, sir, for shame." And again, he's that much of a aristocrat that he couldn't even think outside the box for a moment as to what might make Egg to be a good man, the man that he wishes the other kids turned out to be.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the change, because I was trying to remember back how this discussion had happened in the original book. But those changes actually do, I think, a lot to set up Makar more as an antagonist type force versus someone who really understands, somebody who he even have a connection with. Because if Makar goes to the tree and has this, there is a recognition and understanding, and the fact when they're sharing the ideas, yeah, whenever anything bad happens, they're always going to be like, yeah, but what if Baylor, what if Baylor was still around, but now we got to deal with Makar and his choices. Whereas Magar can also turn around and be like, yeah, and and you're going to feel it too, because anytime that happens, they're going to be like, yeah, but if you only hadn't died saving that hedge knight or whoever. That is a much more of a, I wouldn't quite say brotherly, but at least an acknowledgement, a connection between the two, which makes, Egg actually becoming his squire later on in a different circumstance, much more of a branching out point. But by summoning him, you're right, there's much more of a power dynamic, and they change this much more of the idea of what is the idea of a knight versus the reality of royalty. What is what's the age old, what is genetics, and what is the environment that you're in. And I think this all comes into, and this, in a way, because they separate these out and add these other little scenes in, this ultimately does become a question is, can we change fate? Or is there something that we can do differently? What is it to be? Is in royalty going to curse someone to a certain existence, or is potentially being out there going to teach him something that could actually make a difference in future rule? Could we make him into the good knight or the good potential king that Baylor was going to be, even though Egg's at the bottom of the barrel right now in regards to becoming king? That may not be that much of a consideration. But I think they do, I think that's sort of what they set up within all of these scenes, is that kind of bigger question, which is at least a good question to dive into. And it just reinforces how different Dunk is. Again, his idea of what being a knight is, and how much he can't do that if he's around these royals, because their world is just messed up. It's not the world that it's supposed to be. And I think that even weighs his question even more hand of like, this hand, this foot, was this a fair exchange for a prince? Of course it doesn't seem to, because this seemed to be such a great thing. But I do like his idea of, well, but maybe I'll have to do something with this hand or this foot that will make a big difference in the future. And even though Makar's response of like, yeah, what would that be? Big chance. That is even more of a separation. So I think with these changes, they really separate the difference between their levels much more than doing the quick little scene by the tree, which I think, again, leads into what we see with Egg later on.
Yeah, so after that, when Egg was eavesdropping, which I thought that's also a change from the book. I also thought it was interesting. And then Egg goes to him afterwards, and he's just like, "Look, I can't really be that person for you." And Egg is like, "Well, maybe you're not the knight I thought you were." And then appropriately, we jump into the flashback with Arlen, where Arlen's telling some story, and it looks like this is when he's dying. And then Dunk asked him, like, "Why did you never knight me?" And then he wakes up after Dunk, thinks he's dead, starts crying because he's not responding, but then he wakes up again, just finishes his story, and it doesn't even address it. So I've heard people wonder, like, whether or not this was like in Dunk's head, or is this a memory of Arlen right before he died. But either way, like, I heard someone like wonder, like, oh, is the show saying that that Dunk was never knighted? Saying, oh, it's still unclear because maybe Arlen, survived after that and knighted Dunk. But I think I took this personally as a confirmation that definitely he did not knight him. Because there's a moment earlier in the show, in the episode, where Sir Lionel is talking to him, and he's saying the gods, talking about Baelor, saying the gods don't favor fraud. And Dunk says, well, why did the gods favor me? To me, that was like clear confirmation. He considers himself a fraud. He doesn't consider himself an actual knight. And to have that flashback of Arlen saying, asking him flat out, why do you never make me a knight? I think that's confirmation that he was never knighted. And that's different than the book. In the book, you could say it's ambiguous, like they never say it outright. But for me, I never doubted it. I thought it was implied. And yeah, I don't know. I think that adds an extra layer that doesn't need to be there. That's just my feeling of it. Darren, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the two big changes that to me make a very different character and a very different story. Because I definitely saw this as the show specifically saying he was never knighted. We had that statement before. He has a hesitation on knighting right before the joust, and then Baratheon steps up and says, "I'll take care of this. You head up into there," which is kind of a subtle acknowledgement that with this scene, he basically says, "Why did you never knight me?" That's pretty much the show saying, whether it's a memory or it's just in his head, that's a thing that happened. And I think that's a big change to the character because, yeah, in the story, I never really doubted that he was a knight. There was never really a question to me. I didn't think they were specifically vague, but they just, I don't know, you just went with the story. So to me, that really changes the character. And I think this is one of those things, along with the other change, to add that extra level of drama in upcoming seasons, which I really don't think it needs. So I don't really like that change, but I know why they're doing it. I just have a personal disagreement with it.
Well. Change gonna come sooner or later when you're doing adaptations. I mean, yeah, look, Dunk not being knighted, it's always a thing in the fandom where it was like, is he a knight for real? but he's so legendary that after a while, people just like, well, hey, even if he never took the official vow, he's still Sir Duncan Toll. Let it be what it's going to be. That whole scene though was kind of heart wrenching though, because here he's watching this man who raised him, the only father figure he ever had, die in front of him. He's to a certain extent thinking about his own legacy going forward, but also the legacy of his mentor. Because it's like, hey, well, why didn't you knight me? Like, think that I was gonna leave you or something? Like, nah, man. Like, basically, we're family. Yeah, you might knight me or whatever, but I'm still your squire as long as you're around. So I just think that this was just kind of heartbreaking to see that realization on Dunk's face. Like, man, this was the one like last chance for him to do this and kind of cement my worth. And I don't know whether or not he didn't want to do it or just didn't get around to do it. So that's definitely got to weigh heavy on his mind. But I think them kind of confirming that Dunk wasn't knighted is just supposed to be more of the theme of the story, where it's like, hey, what truly makes someone a knight? Like, is it the vows that we take, or is it the actions? Because yeah, you can say words, but look at what happened when Dunk was calling for people to come to his rescue, or not rescue, but to come to his aid for Trial of Seven. He was like, hey, I stood up for what was right according to what the said code of conduct is for being a knight. If this is what you are about, you wear that title of sir. You have your own sigil or whatever may have you. If this is who you are and what you're about, stand with me. It's supposed to be for justice. It's not about if Sir Arlen actually knighted him. It's about the fact that the lesson that he took made him much more of an actual knight than people who took their vows for real. So for me, yeah, I mean, listen, sometimes it's good to keep things ambiguous, and there are going to be people who are going to say like, yeah, this was an ambiguous thing, but this was the actual confirmation. And it's like, yeah, as much as we may not have wanted it, what is holding that what is holding on to that mystery actually do? Like, what, like, how does that help the story to hold on to that mystery past this point? We know that Dunk is the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms. Let's move on from there and see what this honorable man can affect history.
Yeah, and I agree that that's probably what they're trying to say, that even if he's not a true knight, he's actually is a truer knight than the most actual knighted people, and that he values the whole protect the weak and the creed that Sir Arlen taught him. So that is another way of looking at it. I think that's definitely, that does come across in the show. So then he's hanging out at the tent or whatever, and drinking with Raymond and his new wife. And he's like, he says the thing about bees. It's like, do they use magic? How do they get the bees to go in there? And she's just like, oh, they put a queen bee in there. Did you get hit too hard on the head during your battle? Like that was funny. But another thing I didn't really notice until it was pointed out to me, that there was these kids playing around there, and they were saying, oh, Dragon Lord, do you yield? So they're already kind of imitating Dunk, and so there's already some hero worship, especially among the small folk, of Dunk being this noble knight. So there's already a legend sort of building up around him. But the main difference comes in with Darren there drinking, and he goes up to him, of course, and it's like, yo, you have some nerve being here or whatever. But then he's like, oh yeah, my brother wasn't always a monster. He's like, no, Egg's fine. He's like, I'm not talking about Egg. So, and he was like, he used to love fish, he used to do this. And so that's why I kind of like the show better, the show's version better, because this is what changed Dunk's mind, and this is what made him come up with the idea of having Egg go on the road with him. Because in the book, as I said, it was immediately, as soon as Makar said, hey, let Egg be your squire, he immediately countered with, let him go on the road with me. But I like this way where he comes to the realization, because he realizes that Daron and Arion are the way they are because of the way they were raised, because of being a noble, because of being around like this, being spoiled and being around these castles, and that the best thing for Egg would be to be raised away from that. And so he has that realization, so he goes to Makar and he makes the counter offer. This is the change from the book I don't like, is that Makar flat out says no. But although what I do like is that he says it from a perspective, not a perspective of, oh, not so, I mean, it's kind of like he's too noble to live in ditches. That is the aspect of it. But it's not so much as, I don't like you, I think you'd be a terrible mentor. It's more along the lines, he's my son, he's my family, he should be with the family. You can hear that in his voice, and you see that in the previous scene where he stops Egg from killing Arion. So that is coming from more of like a personal place. But yeah, in the book, he doesn't say no. He apparently just twitches his jaw and walks away. And then Egg comes back later and says, oh, my father told me to serve you. So you could interpret the book as Egg is lying, but that would be a leap. Whereas in the show, they make it like hammer in the head, make it clear that, oh, yeah, no, Egg is definitely doing this on his own and cheating. And that, I didn't like that change. That change kind of pissed me off when they had the extra scene of Makar going, where the fuck is Dunk? Where the fuck is Egg? I'm like, do you really need that? Like, is that necessary? Like, to me, that adds a whole layer of, oh, now they're outlaws and now the Targaryens are going to be looking for them. And we don't need that. I think it's much better the way it is in the book. And as I said, there could be, as far as we know, maybe this is also the case in the book. And maybe later in the short stories, it was supposed to be the Makar will show up and be like, hey, where the hell did you go? But it wouldn't have that hanging over all of the stories the way it's going to be in the show of, oh, because you never even thought he'd run away. It doesn't seem like Egg is lying in the book. And to make that drastic of a change, yeah, kind of pisses me off. But anyway, Darren, we'll get to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think this is where we do hit that nature versus nurture kind of aspect, is between this scene with Dunk and Darren, really paired with the scene where Egg takes the knife and is thinking about killing his brother while he's in bed, and his dad stops him effectively. I think these are the two kind of double weighted scenes which do get that change to happen, because yeah, Dunk very much gets addressed with the idea is, God, if Aaron was only raised better by somebody that had a little sense of decency, perhaps he wouldn't be such an asshole. And I think because of Dunk's connection with Egg and that little scene where Egg's like, maybe you're not the knight that I thought that you were, this gives him that idea of like, maybe I need to do this for Egg. Maybe that's the difference that I can make here, is I can give him a true race somewhere where that honors the small folk and sees what being a real knight is supposed to be versus what's going on in these royal houses. And I think from Makar's standpoint, the fact that he sees, here's another Targaryen about ready to kill his brother because of, and all we do is war back and forth, but he's still my little kid, and maybe this isn't the best place for him. Maybe he needs something else. I think, to me, that's exactly what these two scenes do, which is great when they kind of come back. And you're right, that's what make that other change so very annoying, because yeah, we don't have this scene where Makar goes, yes, Egg, I release you. So yeah, you could say it's a little out, but if I remember correctly, he also gets a sigil or sign that shows of who he is.
Yes.
Which is like basically a proof that this is all authorized. So, and yeah, because without it, it's going to be a drama that they're off. Oh my God, the fake knight has kidnapped the youngest Targaryen. Okay, we need to stop her, save her. I mean, it's just, to me, this is just drama to add on to the seasons, where I don't think it was necessary just to set up their journey. So yeah, I don't really like that particular change either. Like I says, it to me, these change the characters in ways that aren't really needed, but I guess we'll have to see where they're going with that.
So, I mean, yeah, this was very interesting. The fact that they decided to make that change, and it's funny because like the way that it plays out first, really plays out kind of for laughs, and but then you realize what the implication is, because now, yeah, he's going to be sending people out to look for Egg, and it's going to be one of these things where it's like, all right, do you have some sort of sorcery over my kid or something? Because why does he want to follow you? You're poor. I mean, because, again, that is one of his major reasons for not wanting Egg to go on the road here, as opposed to when the book, he was just like, wait, no, dude. Oh, you're broke. You have no money. You barely know how to fight like a knight for real. I'm not going to have my kid sleeping in a ditch when he could be, in a nice feather bed with some silk sheets. He's all the way from ET. What? How dare you? You want him to sleep under trees like you? And in stables like you? These poor people. Oh my God. And unfortunately, that's what Makar's whole philosophy is, and I think that's part of the reason why they might have changed that from the books, because I think the whole thing is just to show like Makar hasn't changed. None of this actually changed him. He. I mean, because even when you look at what's supposed to be later on Makar's reign, Makar is kind of known throughout the Seven Kingdoms as being a bit of a jerk. He's like, okay, he's like the less cruel Makar the Cruel. Like, he's just kind of He's just kind of a big brute, and I think that they wanted to stick with that theme here, which I think was the reason why they decided to make that change. But yes, it is definitely going to add drama going forward. Um, Honestly, though, I'm here for it because I love to see like what's going to happen when when they finally catch up. Because if going by the way that things are happening in the books, nobody catches up with them until about 2 years 2 years later, White Walls. So, yeah, this is gonna be interesting because like next season is gonna be there's a royal decree or whatever. Find me Prince Aegon Targaryen. Here's his description, and now Egg is probably going to dye his hair black or something like that, so this way he doesn't match the description of what they're looking for. But yeah, there is one thing that later on I'm going to touch on that has to do with the entire series that I said I would apologize for if it went nowhere. So for the time being, I yield my time.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't agree. I don't like what this adds to it. I don't want this to be let's find the outlaw kind of thing. I don't like the dynamic that it adds to it. Plus, I like the way it is in the book where you at least they imply that Makor has changed his mind because that makes him a much more interesting character for me. One who recognizes that Dunk is right. One who recognizes that maybe the reason that his sons all turned out to be drunks and assholes was because of the way they were raised, and that maybe he needs something more humble upbringing to actually be raised like by a commoner. That Makor actually realizes this, and that, to me, that makes him a much more dynamic and interesting character.
Well, it gives him wisdom. He can see the difference there. But it's also interesting. I didn't touch on a little scene where Baby Grogu sees his hair growing in again, and how much that disturbs him. Because Baby Grogu's not supposed to have hair; he's a little bald kid. But I think that's also his fear of being a Targaryen. Again, this is coming in. That's my Targaryenness coming in. What's that going to be? I think this also adds a layer of him being scared of what he might be. And I think to Don's statement there, or question there, I think maybe that's why he himself is driven to Dunk, is he can recognize that Dunk is a good man. And he's like, I want to be a good person too. I can't do it being here. I think, again, all of these add little layers, which I think could play out very interesting. But I agree, I'm just not really big on the go after these guys, the fraudster, he kidnapped the prince. I just hope they don't do that, but they will.
So yeah, the final scene I thought was really nice. I thought it was kind of heartwarming, bring it back together. You had Raymond, of course, show up with the horse that he bought from him, and Dunk like giving the horse as a gift to Raymond. I think that was more of a gift to the horse than it was to Raymond. That he believes that the because they said, I didn't notice until someone pointed out, but he was talking about how, if you want to, can you give the horse an apple, because apparently the horse loves apples and it's a special treat for him. So for him to live on an apple orchard would be what he would think would be a very good sort of life for that horse, rather than going on the road with him. And plus, like, yeah, why is he isn't 3 horses? Too many horses for one person. And yeah, so I think it was a nice gesture of the Raymond to buy a horse, which are not cheap, and willing to give it to Dunk, but then Dunk willing to to let him keep it. That was a nice scene. It was, of course, also like really heartwarming when Egg shows up and says, I'm here to be your squire. And he's just like, sir, you address me as sir, and sort of lays out the law, making it clear of the dynamic that he wants between them, but really that he's going to try to raise him as honorably as he was raised by Sir Arlen. And then, of course, when they go off, they have Arlen there, and he just splinters off and goes his own way, kind of symbolizing that Dunk doesn't really need him anymore, and that Dunk can be the knight now, and that he's grown beyond the need for his training, which I thought was nice symbolism. So yeah, I thought it was a heartfelt ending. Until you get into that extra scene, but I already talked about that. Don, we'll start with you on this one.
I mean, listen, you know what? I like the end. Sir Arlen. I thought that was so sweet how they had the little kind of epilogue for him. The whole thing of the 9 kingdoms and just still showing the difference between Dunk and Egg in terms of their experiences. But it also, showed Dunk like, hey, yeah, I had a lot to learn from a kid. It's going to be interesting to see again, them being on the road for the next year or two. And with Akar, kind of probably knowing exactly what happened, but still wanting some measure of his own, justice, because damn you, boy. You went against my wishes. I know that this hedge knight didn't put you up to it, but still, Sir Duncan the Tall, why does my son want to follow you so badly? So I think that that was an interesting way to end off this season, and still set up for season 2, but not kind of ham-fist exactly what's going to happen. And again, we know what's supposed to. If you've read the next 2 books, you know what's supposed to happen as far as that's concerned. So, all right, that's cool. But yeah, like I said, I like the way that this set everything up for the future. So, yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now.
Yeah, no, I really did like this scene. I did like the little send off with Raymond and the horse going up, because we know how much horses like cider. So going to a cider farm really is just going to be the best. And again, it's just kind of this sweet little brotherly connection that the two of them have. It's all very appropriate. Egg showing up to go, I swear to God, and I've been thinking all day, I can't remember what this scene was in, but this was almost an exact scene. The minute that Egg's like, he said that I could go with you, I was waiting for Dunk to say, well, then we better go before he changes his mind. Which, like I said, is like verbatim, like another scene than another show that I can't remember. Not to detract from this, but the way it was done, it made the little follow-up scene like, oh yeah, they're totally implying that this was done under the radar, which is, again, I think the difference thing in the book. When he shows up, he's got his little sigil thing. It's like, oh, and I have proof of permission in case we run into thing or whatever. I'm not sure if the description, the talk about goes into the next book or not, because I did the audiobook of the trio, so all the stories ran in together. I didn't really see them as separate stories initially. So, but it was very sweet, and I do like the two, and the fact that Dunk does very much lay down the ground rules of how he's going to raise him. And again, you're right. That scene with Arlen just coming off and veering off with the horse and Hending, I thought was super sweet. And a perfect kind of send off, like, okay, his part of the story is gone, and now we're going on with the two of these together. I thought that was great. Again, we'll definitely have a season 2. Dorn puppeteers. Hey, we could have a little connection. Who knows if they're going to add extra? They'll add the extra stories in. Could be some in Dorn. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think that was sweet. A nice way to end it.
I think I heard that season 2 will be the next short story, which was the was it the oh god, why am I blanking on it? Not the Mystery Knight, that's the third one. It's the Sworn Sword. Yes, that's it. Sworn Sword. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so yeah, I heard that would be it. But I don't know. Maybe that's not true. But yeah,
you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah.
I wanted him to see him get back with Tansel. I was actually hoping that they would keep Tansel in the show, but it actually wouldn't make any sense. Yeah, I didn't get that reference there in your username, so maybe I didn't watch this show that you're referencing. I also didn't feel the same way. Like, I was caught off guard when they had that extra scene. Like, I didn't, maybe it's because I was thinking of the books. I didn't think that Aig was lying. I thought that he actually did have permission, and it wasn't until the extra scene I was like, come on. Like, do we need this? But that's just me. Anyway, yeah, so if anyone wants to talk about their overall thoughts of the season as a whole real quick, I thought it was fine. Like, I realized I don't like this as much as a lot of people, because a lot of people are talking like this is one of the best seasons of Game of Thrones ever, and they're comparing it to the best seasons of Game of Thrones, and I'm just over here like, I actually like House of the Dragon better than the show. Like, I like that it's more personal and it's more lower being, not trying to be all grand. But I think the pacing was really off, as I talked about. I think the inciting incident happened halfway through the story, and they kind of sped through it. And then the big battle episode, they spent half of it in this flashback, which was very poorly paced. So it should have been earlier in the season. So I had a lot of issues with the pacing of the season. I think they stretched everything out too long. I think it should have been a 2-hour movie rather than a TV show. So could have had been better paced maybe, and not stretched things out. And as much as the issues I had with House of Dragon season 2 would stand, all stem from they ended the 2 episodes too early, and apparently that was it could have been like HBO screwing them and saying, no, we're taking 2 episodes away. But even if it wasn't, like, yeah, the pacing in that season's off too, but I was just more interested. I was just more invested, even though I had issues with that as well. I'd rather be watching House of the Dragon. That's not to say I didn't like this show. I absolutely did. Looking forward to seeing more seasons, but for me, it comes, third behind House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, but that's just my humble opinion. Don, what are some of your thoughts?
So I like the season overall. The fact that it was so full of books, but at the same time, able to add new layers to certain characters, kind of deepen the lore. I mean, the fact that they were able to fit in the Blackfire stuff, which hadn't been in the original books, but just to tie it all together was good. And the fact that they were able to find a way to make it feel like Game of Thrones, and yet still find a way to make it feel totally its own. I like that. The one thing, and again, I gotta apologize for defending it before, because I thought that they wouldn't just add something in that was gonna go absolutely nowhere. Is that damn thing with Dunk supposedly defeating Ashford's kid, for bet. And yeah, like I was thinking, okay, this is gonna come up at some point because otherwise, why have it in there just to do absolutely nothing with it all? Like at least there should have been something at the end where Ashford, like they decided, okay, hey, you know what? I just decided to put a bet on you for the trial of 7. And so I was able to get my Lord's money back. Sorry, I'm not able to pay you for it, but hey, at least the house isn't in debt anymore, or something like that. Even if they would have had that, then to me it would have made sense. But there was nothing. It was absolutely just dropped the plot line for absolutely no reason. So yeah, I would love to. I'd love for them to like cut that out of the show altogether, if possible. But otherwise, fabulous season of TV. I think anyone who is into just this kind of nightly stuff and even possible like on the lowest of low level fantasy, I think this is a good show for them to watch. So overall, I'll give the season 9.5 out of 10.
I give it an 8 out of 10, just to be clear about that. But just to jump in real quick, that yeah, that's sorry, I lost my train of thought. You go ahead, Darren. I'll gather my thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of agree with all that. I was exactly thinking of that scene, Dawn, of like, well, should we have had the flashback from Rafe at that point there, or where could we have? Because that was a whole unnecessary bit. And yeah, it's just this really could have been a very tight 2-hour movie, as opposed to a very stretched out 6-part series. And that's really kind of my only kind of gripe against it. It looked great. I think the acting was really good. I think the casting was all great. I was intrigued with a lot of their stuff. I definitely want to see more of Baby Grogu. He's adorable. And I think Dunk very much has established himself well as a very honorable knight who maybe is not very intelligent, but he's got a lot of heart. And I think that's kind of an important setup for character. And I think that, again, I just think they could have had a really tight 2-hour story that would have moved a lot better and would have felt more of like if you just did the streaming dump of the 6 episodes all at once. Instead, doing the old classic episode a week, which gets us to talk about it and always enjoy seeing you guys and talking more about Westeros. But I just think it would have flowed a little bit better. And yeah, I also would put this third behind the two of those. I mean, Game of Thrones was awesome for 5 seasons. And then they had a couple other seasons after that. And while I do have problems definitely pacing wise with House of the Dragon, I think there's a lot more meat on those bones that they have to play with than they do here. So yeah, if this was like a 2-hour movie, this probably would have leaped over House of the Dragon for me in terms of just it being paced better and a tighter story. But otherwise, yeah, it just feels like it's just a little thin from its stretch out. But that's a minor criticism. I am totally looking forward to the next season.
Yeah, I remember right before the season aired, there was a couple of critics who got all 6 episodes, and there was one person, I can't remember who, but one person was saying that they liked it, that it followed the book very closely, but that they added a lot of stuff that didn't need to be there. And I remember thinking, like, oh, that they're probably being silly. Like, the book purists never like when you make additions, and I think you add some things that does help it out. But after watching this shit, I think they're right. like Don brought up that scene with the guy saying, "Oh, fight, ask for his son," or whatever. Why have that in there? They didn't, and why change it so that Maycor is like, "Oh my god!" Like, we don't need that stuff. Those extra stuff. I think that they, in those cases, like some of the stuff they added, I was okay with, to be fair. But like some of it is just like, did you really need to do that? Like, I don't think so.
Totally agree.
Don gave our ratings out of 10. What's yours, Darren?
I have to give it a 7 because I don't want to be the same numbers as you two. No.
And also 7 Kingdoms.
That's right. 7 Kingdoms, no 9. I mean, that was kind of cute at the end, but they didn't need to do like the 9 Kingdoms. Like,
we didn't need the text of it.
That was not it. That was otherwise a nice little drop of like, hey, again, Egg's very smart, Dunk's a little dense. That would have been just a great leave right there. But no, I mean, again, I think it was very well done. I liked a lot of it. It just felt like it meandered a little more. It just wasn't as tight a story as I think was worthy of having 6 episodes. So that's the only thing that donks it for me.
And Brendan in the chat saying that he likes it better than House of the Dragon. Sorry if I'm wrong in your eyes. You're not wrong. In all seriousness, you're not wrong in my eyes. It's just different preferences, different opinions. And if makes you feel better, I think you're in the majority. I think most people would agree with you. Not this guy. I'm a country. No. Hey,
I still think Millie Alcock in the first half of season 1 was freaking incredible.
Well, I thought most people did. Like, who doesn't?
I mean, everybody was good, but I mean, that's just one of those that really made an impression. Honestly, that's why I'm interested in seeing Supergirl. But yeah,
fair.
I mean, well, listen, I'm gonna say as far as why I think people may like Night of the Seven Kingdoms better than House of the Dragon. One of the same reasons that people like Game of Thrones better than House of the Dragon. Quotables. There are a few quotables in House of the Dragon. I mean, sorry, in Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You can't name like any quotables from House of the Dragon except for maybe the scene where Vaemon gets his head cut off because he calls Rhaenyra a whore. Other than that, there isn't anything you can point to as, oh, remember when Rhaenyra said this, or when Daemon said that, or when Aemon said this, or Alicent said. But you have things that Dunk said. You got things that Egg has said. You have things from Baelor, Arian, from the Fossil Ways, definitely the Laughing Storm, and look at how much less time they have had on screen. And I think that quotables in this case are the difference maker, because you can go back through the 6 episodes and then at least one time for every episode there's going to be something that you can say like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna remember that line in a few years from now still.
Maybe you're right, Don, but for me, quotables is not a factor in why I like one show better than another. That's just me. Though maybe the masses are different. Anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and end this discussion here. Thank you so much for joining all season. So this will be the end, the wrap up of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Hopefully, be back next year because I believe they're filming it right now. Either that or they already have one or the other. So hopefully, and since it's a smaller, shorter show, hopefully they'll have it ready in a year. We don't have to wait 2 fucking years like we do with House of the Dragon. Anyway, yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us all this the whole season long. And yeah, if you want to give a shout out or just say hello or anything you have going on where people can find you, Darren, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm in a nice little lull spot here now that we've wrapped up Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Of course, I was here all season. Was over with Rob at Smirking Gun. We had done Fallout Season 2 recently. Go and check that out. And in another month or so, I may be jumping in and doing Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Looking forward to that. So really nothing until then. Just hanging out. I've got taxes to do, so it's probably good I have that break.
Okay. Wow. I mean, listen, you know what? You can catch me wherever someone is going to invite me to come in and speak gibberish, essentially. So if that happens to be Darren, cool. If that happens to be Mark, cool. If that happens to be Rob, cool. And who knows whatever else, you know. I'm here to provide your gibberish insights.
Awesome. Well, if you're finding me for the first time, my name is Mark, channels Enchantment of Eternity. It's it for Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I'm still covering Star Trek Starfleet Academy, new episodes every Thursday. And other than that, my channel is all full of Star Trek. I'm going through reviewing every goddamn episode of Star Trek, currently in season 5 of DS9, season 3 of Voyager. So you can check me out for that. And yeah, other random stuff. In the chat, Rockers LA asked if we'll be covering House of the Dragon season 3, and that is a big affirmative. Definitely will be here for that as well. So if you're only into the R.R. Martin verse, then we'll see you there for that. But if you're into Star Trek, for that as well. Anyway, thanks so much, everyone, and we will see you next time.